When one thinks of a protest, picket signs, violence, and angry mobs are things that may come to mind. However, there are a lot more to a protest than these simple elements.
According to Carmen Kynard, author of Vernacular Insurrections, Black college student protests are imperative to the study of literacy in the 21st century.
It is important for one to look deeper into a protest and take into consideration the grievances and subsequent actions of the protesters and the overall outcomes of the protest. By examining all of these elements, one can begin to understand how literacy is shaped by these movements.
Student protests have and continue to play a prominent role in the development of literacy and the history of Howard University. Since the university's founding in 1867, there have been four main student-led protest movements in which students voiced their grievances and demanded change from administration.
The four major protests were during the 1920s, 1968, 1989, and 2018. During the most recent protest in the spring semester of 2018, students argued that throughout its history, Howard University has failed to prioritize the interests of its student body, and we refuse to suffer the impact of administrative negligence in silence. According to HU Resist, a campus social justice organization that fights for student rights and led the protests.
Literacy took on many different forms during the 2018 protest movement, which included verbal literacy, social media literacy, and written literacy. This literacy played a prominent role in the protest by initiating the organization of the protest, emphasizing the students' needs during the protest, and helping to resolve the issues at hand. In order to examine this protest movement completely, it is imperative to consider the movement's social and institutional context, its primary concerns, its significant developments, and its major outcomes. What factors built up over time that contributed to the start of the protest?
So, there was this housing crisis in March, so people that wanted to get housing for the spring semester, they couldn't get it. A lot of them couldn't get it because of this overcomplicated RSVP point rule by ResLife. So you got RSVP points by how far you lived away from campus, your GPA, how many hours of community service you served, and it sounded like a good idea at first, but me, I only lived like 20 minutes away from campus, but someone who lived from Texas, I knew people that lived in North Carolina that could not get housing just because of the RSVP rule, and that's actually absurd. So yeah, that was one. And then two, there was the financial aid scandal. So there were a lot of work-study employees in the financial aid office. They were involved in fraud and embezzlement of HU funds and from other people attending Howard. And one you might remember is Tyrone. He was a very famous person in it. And yeah, basically all of them, I think there were 6 of them, they stole a total of well over $500,000. Wow. And that was really bad. And somehow it all happened at the same time before like the start of spring semester. So that's what really started the aid building incident.
As stated by Zaina, the main issues were the financial aid and housing crisis. The financial aid crisis at the university was characterized by the fact that 6 employees in the financial aid office were fired for gross misconduct and neglect of duties. Essentially, these employees and work-study students have been double-dipping, which resulted in about $369,000 in misappropriated funds. The financial aid scandal had detrimental effects on the Howard community. It took scholarship and grant opportunities away from students and held the university back from admitting more students and hiring more staff.
The housing crisis also began before 2018. In September 2015, many students complained of infrastructure problems, which included no air conditioning in classrooms, no hot water in dorms, and rats. In January 2016, about 200 students that had outstanding balances with the university were harshly evicted from their dorms. Then in September 2017, the university announced plans to convert 2 dorms into luxury apartments to make money. This was particularly devastating news to the student body, being that many students were denied housing because of lack of space.
Very famous org at Howard, HU Resist. They're all for, student empowerment and student equality with, HU admin and their problems. So they start having meetings to try to fix what Howard's been doing to them. They've been purging people. They've been just not answering any questions that we had. So I think there wasn't like an official start, but I think one meeting they just said, you know what, we're gonna do something about it. So
these social and institutional contexts continue to add fuel to the fire, and as more students voiced their opinions amongst one another, the campus organization HU Resist decided that enough was enough and propelled the start of the protest.
As the protests continued to escalate, HU Resist compiled a list of 9 demands that encompassed all of the primary concerns of the students. These included adequate housing for students, a reform on the way in which sexual assault cases were being handled, and the resignation of President Frederick and the Board of Trustees. This illustrates the use of social media literacy and writing literacy, which effectively commanded student power and urged drastic changes on campus.
In addition to this, literacy continued to propel the Howard protest movement of 2018 during its significant developments. One major development of the protest was the sit-in at the administration building. Under the leadership of HU Resist, students planned to take over the A building by gradually filling the building with students and eventually crowding out all of the staff. Their goal was to remain in the building until all 9 of their demands were met.
So I remember it was like at 12 o'clock. Like little by little, people started going to the A building, to Jasmine's, to the second floor to talk to someone in financial aid, to Bursar. And I think when 2 p.m. hit, 2:30 hit, that's when campus police was starting to realize. Yeah, they're starting to put 2 and 2 together. So they started surrounding the A building, but they were really too late. Over 40, 50 people were in the A building, just all separated. And then you hear a huge megaphone, and then everyone just started running up the first floor, and we just started causing a lot of brouhaha. And they made sure that they were staying in that A building. They were not leaving. Right. So, but then campus police they realized that we're not going anywhere. So then that's when the employees left. For Jasmine's, they left. Employees of Bursar and financial aid, they all left. So it was a free space. And I remember they propped chairs in front of the the windows that you can see inside of the A building. They propped chairs there, they barricaded. It was only if you had your ID, you could come in the building. Your student ID, you could come in the building.
In addition to Twitter, students used Snapchat to record videos and take pictures of them chanting, singing, and setting up to sleep overnight in the building.
For the housing crisis, it was hashtag Howard Housing Crisis. For the financial aid scandal, it was hashtag Tyrone, hashtag Give Me My Money, hashtag HU steps back. No, HU fights back, sorry. And when the A building sit-in, it was hashtag A building. People tweeted. I remember just my friends from other campuses, UMD, Bowie State, they were just good luck to you. You're doing a really good job. People knew what we were doing and what we were doing it for. So I feel like social media, it portrayed it well.
Shit, you right in the backseat of my brand new foreign car. Don't act like you forgot. Yeah, I called the shot.
It was crazy. I don't know. And then people had connects to Domino's and stuff, so we had food. We were fed.
Oh, wow.
And that was for the whole week. We were fed.
Wow.
So people slept in there the whole
week? Oh, yes. People were dedicated.
Wow.
And people took turns, took intervals. People had to shower, boom, be in my seat. I'm going to go shower. I'm going to be back. And it was the same thing. And they also barricaded the back way of the A building, too. So no employees could get in, no campus police could get in. Wow. It was really beautiful, actually. I miss it. It was really fun.
So overall, would you say that the protest was worth it? Would you say there were many changes made?
Yeah, what kind of changes do you see now in the fall semester that?
So was it worth it? I feel like it was, honestly, because people heard our story countrywide. They knew HBCU students, they saw the struggles we have to endure on a daily basis, and that we weren't having it. And I can see the changes being seen. I see the changes in HU22 because I see you guys talking to group me about visitation rules, how that's unfair and stuff. And I see this one guy, I think he's trying to make changes to the visitation rules, and it's about time. So I really appreciated that from HU22. And what else? Yeah, we had really good news coverage as well. People didn't really try to spin our story. We had good news coverage. And alumni is always talking about New Howard this, New Howard that, but clearly New Howard is about our business, and we're not taking no for an answer. We're going to stand up for what's right. So I'm proud of New Howard. It's kind of nice talking about and reliving the A building sit-in. It was a fun time on campus. Like that was when like the student body was really like in tune, in sync together. Like we all talk to each other, like late nights every night in the A building, playing games, spades, whatever. It was just a fun time. And I don't know if we're ever gonna get that feeling again, unless Howard wants to, mess up again. But it was a really fun time. It was a really great experience.
After the 8 days of the A building takeover, the protest ended with the periscope from President Wayne Frederick, in which he stated the solutions to the student demands.
Literacy was also used to write the Statement of Commitments. These commitments summarized the negotiations the school came up with in order to solve the pressing issues that students were protesting. There were 9 solutions, which included a more efficient way to cater to sexual assault victims and prevent sexual assault on campus, an extension on the housing deposit deadline, and a board committee in which students will be able to convey their concerns about the university.
From what I know, it was a periscope. Wayne Frederick and his staff, they went live in front of the A building. People were still barricading the doors, like, no, you cannot come in. So they brought in news people, all of that, and then he started stating some of the promises that he was going to grant for us. I believe that's what happened. Yeah.
The effects of the Statement of Commitments are still seen on campus today. In particular, Howard refuses to tolerate any sexual assault cases, as this was emphasized during the orientations that took place in the beginning of the semester. The sit-in at the A building helped unify students on campus, which gave them more confidence and strength to effectively promote changes at Howard. This protest can and will be an example to future students to encourage them to have a voice about the university in order to have a safe and effective college experience.
I believe that we will win! I believe that we will win! I believe that we will win! I believe that we will win!